everyone. Welcome to Choosing the Red Pill, episode 5. We are going to discuss Uniform Civil Code today, and we have two esteemed guests with us, Sualeh and
Hi.
Thakur.
Hi.
And we always have Omer Ghazi with us because the show is called Choosing the Red Pill with Rajesh and Omer. So, hello
Thank you
everyone.
so much, Rajesh. And I welcome Jayant and Sualeh on this discussion, and let's see how it goes. So, welcome.
Yeah. Hi everybody. Hi Jayant.
So,
Hi,
Sualeh,
hi Rajesh, Omer, Sualeh.
hi Jan. Sualeh, would you like to introduce yourself and say something about what you do and what connects you to UCC in discussion, basically?
Well, I'm on the keyboard warrior. What they say, social media, you know, activists and all that. And UCC has been always something that I felt that without which we can't really call our constitution or country secular. And it's been on our minds for a long time. And I remember that 5, 6 years ago, Rajesh and I were considering, creating something like
7, 8 years.
Muslims for UCC.
That was 7, 8 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, 7, 8 years
We have
ago,
been friends for about,
Muslims.
we have been friends for about 12 years now on Facebook.
Yeah. So, it was always something that we wanted to do, and I was always thinking that in a secular country, you can't have these personal laws, civic laws, and all, because that's like a contradiction that on theory and on paper you are a secular country, but
Okay.
you are you are providing them space for all the non-constitutional for non-state actors to devise their. It's like legitimizing cup panchayats. That's
Okay.
what
So,
it means
for,
to
for
me.
our viewers, I would say Sualeh is a lapsed Muslim or an ex-Muslim or whatever he is, but he is no longer following the Muslim practices, and he belongs to Kashmir, and he has keen interest in nationalism in India, and he has keen interest in how should India move forward as a uniform national identity. That's why he is more concerned with UCC. Jayant, what do you think? What connects you to UCC discussion today?
So, by background, I am a chartered accountant. I have done part of law, and UCC is a proposed law. The background is all about law. But on social media, as a chartered accountant, I specialize in securities and corporate law. But I don't try to go into that in social media. I am like what Suale said. It's more about being aware and interacting about current affairs. And UCC is always often on the mind. And particularly when some decision, some controversy comes into light, whether the triple talaq or Shabano earlier, or even, people confuse, that is what I also wanted to make a point is that people confuse a lot of things with UCC. UCC, I feel, is about civil law, that is family law, that is about marriage, divorce, maintenance, guardianship, adoption. It is,
Right.
but
I
people,
guess
when let's say,
I think we can
these men
discuss you.
come, yeah.
Jayant,
Yeah.
hold
So
on.
my point is that there is a law which attracts me. Yeah, I don't want to go into details, but that's
Yeah.
what all attract me because they are very hot subjects, and they get come into social media, so we get sucked into it. Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that we can go into details of UCC later. I just wanted to know for our viewers' sake what connects you to the UCC. So we haven't started the discussion yet. Anyways, so I welcome you both to the show, and Omar and me will take up the job of asking you various questions from our own perspectives as well, and we'll be cross questioning as well. So what I want to explain is this is not a debate, and I want to set it all at the onset. I want to say for our viewers also that it was the creative liberty taken by our editors who posted on the Facebook saying this is some kind of war happening here, going to happen here. It's not going to be so. It is it is more
It is,
positive discussion and a healthy debate or a healthy discussion that we can say, in which we will all bring perspectives and discuss UCC rationally and probably try to come to a conclusion in a informed way, rather than taking fixed political positions. So, Jayant, let me start with you first. And the first basic question that everybody would want to know is, why is UCC such a heated topic, or why is UCC even necessary? Is it desired or not? Please, Jayant, take over.
So uh, I'll say a few words about distinction between UCC, what is the core topic, and some topics which always get connected with it, which are not strictly part of UCC, but the principles are the same. So see, UCC, if I it's a, like dumbing it down, is about family laws like marriage. Typically three things: marriage, divorce, alimony, maintenance, custody. One group, and then we have guardianship and adoption. That is the second, and third is inheritance. Like suppose if I die, who gets my property? So I mean, all these three things, these three things typically are the civil laws. But this issue comes up because all these things are based on religion. People, whenever something is connected to religion and comes into the fore, like beast band comes and turban comes and burqa comes and Sabrimala comes, people see the principles are the same, that religion is meddling with freedom of people in these areas, just like civil laws, individual civil laws do. So, people confuse. But so, although we should apply the same principles in these elite subjects, UCC is about family law. But being connected with religion and religion being identity, and some people are more protective about their identity than others. Some Hindus may be indifferent, they may be shifting here and there, some other Christians may be moving there. Typically, it is perceived, in particular in media, that Muslims are very, protective, and and we have All India Muslim Personal Law Board, and every time issue comes, they say don't, depart from Sharia, and then it becomes heated. There are people who will break them, who will, demonize them, and so on. But it's not just Muslims. Like I'll take a very small group like Parsis. If you see the background of civil laws, Parsis have been at the forefront of protecting the identity. They may not be very very vocal and and very controversial, but they are very much. And there is right now there is one nine bench decision, the nine bench of the Supreme Court, dealing apart from Sabrimala also with an issue whether a Parsi lady who has married a non-Parsi person, can she remain call herself still a Parsi? Can she enter a fire table? She says, I'm still a Parsi. I believe in Zoroastrianism. So this is a intake subject. It concerns the identity. That was your question, right? What was the
Right.
second question?
Okay.
Okay. So, can I counter? I
Oh,
have some.
right now, I think Omer will take over right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, what Jayant has raised a very good point, that this distinction should be made, that UCC is mostly about the family laws, right? And the family laws are connected with religion and identity. And people, whatever religion they are very protective of their identity. They identify with particular faith or beliefs and traditions. So I will take this question to Sualeh, that now that we know that UCC is, so it feels like it is interfering in people's, uh, meddling into people's affairs related to tradition and religion. So do you think that that is justified, and at to what level should UCC and the secular laws should be able to penetrate into the people's identity?
Okay. My response I will divide into two parts. First, I will establish that right from the beginning, UCC has always been floated, even in the British era, as the ideal benchmark to achieve, and it was simple ease of implementation, the comfort, the lack of opposition to just outsource certain aspects of laws and all to the communities from which the litigants and all the complainants and all those people belong to. Now, even then, at that time, there was opposition from women who wanted UCC. I'm talking about 1933, long before British India, this thing. So, at every stage, there has always been, whenever the marriage acts have been updated or amended or something, but every time UCC has been considered as to be the holy grail, the level that we want to achieve. And that is the reason why, that though the you know the the constitutional committee of India, when they created the constitution, even though they had the same excuses that the British previously used for opposition, for getting opposition from high caste Brahmins, from this, that, and all. So even at that time, they were saying, even Jawaharlal Nehru was an advocate of UCC, and he said that we'll go for it, but right now the time, maybe we should not push it through. So what he meant was that it was just like Article 370, that this is temporary, it will have to go at one point. So similarly, it was said that at one point it is desirable, highly desirable, that these religious based civil codes, they go and make way for uniform civil code, which will be applicable to the maximum communities and regions in the country, which would include eventually northeast and other things which are difficult to right now address. But to as much as possible, we have to. So now that is the historical reason why everybody in the past, all our legislatures, constitutional committees, and all, how they have said that UCC is desirable. So it is not something right wing or left wing. It is something that has been universally said to be the standard, the holy grail of this thing. Now, regarding the question that you said, that interference, that is, UCC, will it interfere into the personal beliefs, the personal life? Of course it will. Of course it will, because it will supersede and supplant the existing the civil codes. So naturally, it's an interference. In that sense, secularism is an interference, because it provides a law and constitution which supplants all your tribal laws, panchayat laws, your traditions, and this thing. Now, why is that a bad thing? It is not a bad thing at all, because, say, for example, religion, say Islam, for example, from in the during the time when it was created, there were certain extant cultural practices which involved dealing with slaves also. You know, how you deal with slaves, how you deal with slave women, how many, how, and all that. Now, does that mean that any law that makes slavery or outlaws slavery is interfering in that religion? Of course it does. And it should. That is the point. That it should. That every time there is a conflict between a religious move or a tradition, and because universal human rights, they are, every time there is a new increment, there are incremental changes in it. And we have reached to a point where slavery, nobody even says that what about my religious right to have slave girls or something. Nobody is making that kind of a demand. So there has been an incremental this thing, and we have reached in the chronology to a point where it is accepted, universally accepted, that women have to be given equal rights. Now, if it was not given according to certain religious customs and traditions, because of the patriarchal structure, or because women at that time were not working, or coming out of, out of their households and all. So those things have to go. There is no, we have universally accepted that women are equal, and that principle is something that will supplant all these things. It is incidental whether it is going to interfere in Islam at a certain point, with widow marriage in Hindus, different things. They will, it will, these new humanitarian universal laws based on the principles of equality, they are going to inflict damage to these old traditions, and It is not a wrong thing, because if you look at it, why is civic law such a thing? Like, is the in Islamic law, Sharia, there's a whole lot of detailing about how a person has to be punished for theft. You have to cut an arm, you have to do this. Now no Muslim is saying that why Indian constitution is giving him imprisonment instead of chopping off his hand. Nobody is making that demand, right? So why is it that only when it comes to the domestic, or what they call the domestic sphere, that they want to insulate themselves from the secular this thing? It's basically to have control over their own communities, and that is the failing of these civil courts, is because they cluster that it's like a gated community, that okay, secularism, democracy until the gate, but after you enter the gated community, there anything is possible. They can mistreat their children, they can mistreat their women, they can be this thing. So it will be only that in public sphere that there is this existence of equality, democracy, and secularism. But when it comes to family, which forms the basic unit of society, we are keeping it free. Then whom are we applying? Because family is finally composed of citizens, and if it doesn't penetrate into that sphere, domestic sphere, then then it is basically left to the community leaders to basically act as the non-state unelected representatives of people. Otherwise, what locus standi does, this board have, this, personal law board and all have. They are not elected. They are not this thing. Who are they to say? Now there are things like, for example, when I when I'm talking as a citizen of this country, a citizen who would want equal opportunity, equal rights, no matter where I am, what family I happen to belong to, what religion I was born into. So there is this kind of a thing, is that, say, if I adapt somebody, naturally I'm going to, that person is going to inherit and become a part of my family and inherit. But according to Sharia, that person does not have any claim on inheritance, even
Okay,
though I
great.
raised that person. So I don't want some people to say that, oh, India is a great country, but I was unfortunate to be adapted by that family because their laws are different. So you can't have, it's the same principle, one country,
Right.
one law.
Okay, thank you, Sualeh. That was great explanation. And what I have gathered from what Sualeh said is UCC is a desired goal which was implied in the Constituent Assembly as well. It is written in the Constitution as well as a desired goal, and it should be desired, and we should work toward achieving it because it defines equality, it defines equal application of law for every citizen in India, and no one should be treated separately because of their religion, caste, creed, whatever. And for that purpose, secular law should have the tools at its disposal to penetrate into the personal schisms and treat everybody as equal. That's what I've gathered from what Suale said. But my understanding of history is not just from Hindu Muslim divide or how Muslims treat women or how Muslims treat. My understanding of history is more from the Hindu side. The schism that we talk about today between Hindus and Muslims, there have been about 100 times more schisms even in the just Hindu society. Even I, my point is not that whether it is desirable or not. Yes, it is desirable. Of course, it is. But whether it can be made, yeah, one thing can be desirable, but whether it is a want or a need, and whether it can be achieved or not. So, from that practical point of view, take the question to Jayant. Jayant, if UCC is desirable, let's accept that it is there in the constitution.
I don't agree, but carry on. Yeah.
Okay, wait a sec. But can we achieve it or not? Is it achievable or not? Practically speaking, because as there are many distinctions between within Hindu society as well. Some are matrilineal, some are patriarchal societies, communities rather, and like that there have been many distinctions within the Hindu society of there are Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, and Buddhists who are treated all as Hindus, despite having their own differences. But there are religious differences apart. There are caste differences, and there are individual community level differences. So, how does Hindu history plays into this? And imagine if Islam was not there, or Muslim personal laws were not there, will there be in India? Would there have been a unity in India?
See, first is, the question is, when you ask whether the UCC is desirable, I think, we have to understand what we mean by UCC. UCC is a civil code which you want to make it uniform. Means each and every person citizen in India, so there will be one common family law with all its details. See, we always talk of, when we talk of UCC, the background is discrimination against women. We say that, they don't get proper share of their property, they may be divorced, there are, n number of things, this ancient triple talaq and all those things have come out of basically discrimination against women. If you, in fact, even if you see the Hindu law as it evolved, there was a time when, the woman was treated like this way that, of course, the father is the guardian of the woman. The daughter and the husband becomes the guardian, then the son becomes the guardian. And every time there was one particular male who used to dominate or sort of take care of her. Even today in Hindu law, the husband is the guardian of the wife. So, when we are saying uniform, what we want to do is we want to make all the practices uniform. Why don't we focus only on certain two aspects? Two aspects. We say one is about misogyny and second is about underage marriage. Let me give some examples of what other things are which you don't need to make uniform. Like, see, marriages are conducted each by each religion. They want their religious right. There is a culture, like, Muslim marriage, they will say kubul hai. There's a whole set of rituals with that. In church, we have I do, each person says I do. In Hindus, we have this Satabdi. Now, how are you going to make all this common? See, in 1976, when the Hindu Marriage Act came, when the Hindu Marriage Act came, many things about Hindus were recognized as the marriages. But there was one South-based sect, Sura Mother or something. They said that ours is a different ritual. We don't have a priest. We have a different type of ritual, and it took them 11 years to get their ritual recognized. Now there are so many other rituals. We have got so much diversity. Why don't we focus on 3, 4 areas like, equality in marriage, equality in inheritance, equality in cheating in case of divorce and all that. That is going to give equality, and not only equality, give also equity. See, today women are at a lower pedestal. So by making just them as equal, you
Right.
are putting all as unequal. So you have to have equity. You have to give them a leg up. The other thing is, I'll give there are so many other, like, it takes parties. Girls are such a small group, a very progressive group, but they are very, very fiercely independent and protective of their identity. In their, belief and practices, for example, they don't have a concept of adoption. Hindus have a concept of adoption. Christians also don't have a concept of adoption. Now, in your uniform code, are you going to say that everybody will have a right of adoption? It means, suppose a Parsi parent is there and they adopt. And see, they are very humanitarian and all that. But their belief, they say that that particular child does not become a Parsi by adoption. Like, Sualeh also referred to that. Now, are you going to say, forget about your religion and you will have to accept this? Christians, they don't, I believe, they don't have a concept of adoption. Are you going to say that they also have the right of love? So I try to. Yeah, I'll give you one apocryphal story. Indira Gandhi, somewhere in 70s, some enlightened Parsis came to her and said, see that in our law, in Parsi law, a woman gets half the share on inheritance as compared to the male. The daughter gets 1 rupee, the brother gets 2 rupees. So, they themselves came and said that this is not good, please change the law. So what Indira Gandhi told her, and this is how the story goes, is that, see, have you asked the community? Has the community asked her? You are some very wise guys, and we appreciate your progressive, you're a rationalist. So he made them go back. He consulted the whole community, which today is hardly about 30, 40,000, whatever is the number. They discussed this in their party panchayat, and then they came unanimously saying that we want this equality. Now the question is, are we asking the community? What we are saying is that, okay, we will impose on you. See, today I'll give you another example is Special Marriage Act. Special Marriage Act is like a mini UCC code. You go and marry that, You don't have to talk about marriage, divorce, alimony, custody. There is one law for everybody, Hindu, Muslim, etc. Why are people not adopting it? Is it not true that hardly 1 or 2, maybe 3% of the people are adopting? So it means there is so much resistance. There is no demand from the community. We may feel, we may feel that from our state, this is what is good for you. Sometimes are we not feeling it is like, why maybe not, raise the awareness in the community. Could we take yet another example of underage marriage? There is a report as recently as 2017 that 46% of Indian girls are married off before 18. Imagine 46% of Indian, that's almost half of Indian population, half of Indian girls. And see, now this we cannot even say that this is only Muslims that they have a law which permits underage marriages. We are talking of half of Indians get married off. They are not married. They are getting married off before the age of 18, despite that being laws for non-Muslims that you cannot marry. So what is happening? See, do you want to just go on making laws? The Uniform Civil Code, there will be one more law. In the 73, whatever, 73 years of our independence, have we been able to cross this despite having laws? What has happened to, the Indian girls which get married? See, what happens to the life? If you get married at 16, you might have a child at 17 or 18. One law says that, okay, when you reach the age of 18, you can get out the marriage, you can say, but you have already got a child. How will you get out of that marriage? So what I'm trying to say is that just by making laws, it really helps, or really we have to go down to the grassroots, convince them, let them come forward, instead of just applying a big band-aid and conceal the rotten
Jen,
beneath.
Jen, let me
One more thing, I'll just one more controversial quote I want to give. MS Gulwalkar,
Jayant.
yeah.
Sorry, my question, I understand what you're saying about the desirability of UCC, but my question particularly was whether UCC, if desired, if we accept that it is desirable, can it be, is it possible, is it practically possible to make it happen?
See, the thing is that if everybody is agreeable, if it's like, see, tribal population in northeastern state, just count them, we are something 10 to 15%. So 10 to 15% we have given them constitutional guarantees. And I'm not just talking about northeastern states, we have the whole forest belt. The tribals, whom also we have given guarantees under law that we will not touch your personal law. See, there are 4 decisions which they have said that we will not touch first ask. 30% of this small chunk, 30% of the population have not even asked you, and they are very, very likely to resist it. How you are going to implement it? Are these, are you going to just, rough road over all their customs and. And my point is that why do you want to have uniform about everything? Why don't you, for example, say that man and woman will be treated equal in a marriage? The grounds on which man has a right for divorce, woman has the right of divorce. Man has a right of polygamy. Either give the woman also right of polyandry, or make it monogamous both sides. There are 3 or 4, 5 things according to me reforms, major reforms are required. That tells are not desirable, they are not practicable, they are not worth it. See, if you go back and like Sualeh was talking about when Nehru and Ambedkar introduced the Hindu so-called civil code, what they did was they were also they had faced a lot of resistance from the Hindu Mahasabha, from conservative Hindus, from even Sardar Patel and some people were very resistant. So what Nehru and Ambedkar did, they divided the into 4 parts. So you give them into chewable chunks. So they gave 4 big chewable chunks instead of giving one big one they could have split out. In 4 chewable chunks, slowly they get it digested. Some of the things they threw it away. So if you see the original code, they are not all good. So my point is that do it in chewable chunks. Don't do a whole uniform civil code, it will get thrown out. It will not get accepted.
Okay, so Ale, do you want to cross question that?
Okay. So
Yeah, I have.
I would like to add one point here. Yeah, so I think Jayant raises 2 important points that we need to look at once again. The first one is the difference between the theory and practice. Right, theoretically, like you said, it might be desirable, and it is very much something that has been discussed in history since 1930s, if I'm not wrong. And but right now we have to look at the denotified tribes or the forest belt, the northeastern tribes, or a lot of groups who have their own sects and beliefs and their practices. The second thing is that there are already laws that are in place, but how much these laws are able to prevent the human rights violations. So I think that brings me to a question that when we look at UCC and its motive of criminalizing human rights violations by religions, for example, the alimony or the divorce or inheritance or adoption. So these types of things we are looking at, but there are many practices who are human rights violations by many different right. So they might have their own beliefs and so. Swali, my question is to you is that when Jayant says that we already have laws that are in place, so why not strengthen them instead of just having a blanket law for the whole country and each and every individual? So how do you counter that?
I actually agree with Jayant on that. He may be surprised that I agree with him on it. Is that we don't really need UCC. I see it as a principle, an overarching principle in which our entire constitution should be based. So if you have a succession act, you don't mention Hindu, Muslim, male, female. You talk about parents, children, in those kind of a things that children will have. You don't make any distinction. So you will have succession act which will talk in those general terms, and you will have say adoption act, some divorce act, something like that. So they can all have a language which is simplistic, which is general, which does not specify and make unique tweaks for something, does not personalize it for any community or any sector, this thing. So in that sense I am with him, but I have a lot of other things to say, so bear with me for some time. Now, Rajesh, when you took over before you passed the mic on to Jayant, you said that you don't look at UCC from a Muslim perspective. You mostly have the Hindu experience, and you see a lot of diversity within the Hindu umbrella. So much that that Hindu Marriage Act itself is actually homogenizing and obliterating all those differences. Then, by the same token, you shouldn't have any problem with UCC because that will do the same, right? So
Yeah.
that was for you, Rajesh. Now let
Okay.
me
So
go
ask
back
me that
to.
question before I can answer you.
Okay, I will do that later
Yeah. Okay.
because that was
Okay.
just for
Yeah. You
that.
remember to
That
ask me that question.
that under the Hindu umbrella already there are communities and religions who don't necessarily identify themselves as Hindus, who have already in this ambit, and their differences and uniquenesses steamrolled over. So UCC will not be any different. Okay, now
Yeah.
let's. I will do that later. Now, Jayant, what you were saying, the difficulty, the opposition, those kind of a things I want to talk about. Now, the basic blunder by the constitutionals, this thing is that even though the civil marriage was created as a this thing that okay, you can go and do a civil marriage. It is not a nikah. It is not a saath fere kind of a thing. You can have that was given as an option. I have a completely different take, and it is not how things are, but how things should be. I think that should be the only thing recognized by constitution. You want to be recognized as a legally wed couple, whether you are male, female, or two males or two females. Constitution will not get into that. It will just say two individuals are,
For female marrying to a dog should also be allowed.
fair enough. Anything.
Yeah.
But that it's a matter of consent. That is the
Yeah.
dog consent. That is the difficult part in
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Okay. So now what I mean by
Right.
that is that the the that that constitution should not recognize nikah or saath fere or different these things as a fait accompli as a marriage that has been done. No. Until you register it and go to the marriage register, they should only recognize that. So after you get legally this thing, or before that, or whatever, you can have your nikah, you can have your saat fairies, you can have whatever traditions and things that you want. There is no contradiction in that. But even if you divorce them through the religious this thing, and you are not coming filing the divorce in the court, you are still officially married. So no matter what your religion, it will be something that is optional. Right now, what is happening is that it is the constitution that is optional. Religion is fundamental. No, it is the, this has to be changed. This is very upside down system. That whenever there is a constitutional thing and there is a rational thing, the religious thing weighs over, outweighs the other thing, and then okay, constitution jai baad mein kind of a thing. No, it should be the other way around. So what I mean to say that the way to rationalize this problem is that okay, what rules to follow, what religious rights and all. Constitution is completely agnostic and doesn't care about that. You want to adapt somebody, you have to go through the registration process for everything. You have to have those kind of things, and only when done through the constitutional means they are recognized by law. So if you want alimony, so you need to have a registered marriage with this thing, because otherwise we don't even know you are married. Mandir mein the five, there were three witnesses and all. No, I'll tell you why this has not happened. Why this is actually a simple thing that you do your rituals whatever you want, but you have to go through a legal thing. For legal, why it has not been done is, Rajesh, this might interest you. It is easy to outsource rather than to implement rigorously for such a large population one by one. Now let's look at this thing, that the pendency of court cases that is out there in you know the cases that are pending with the judiciary and all. So it is when the system is inefficient and it is inadequate to deal with all these things. That is when it says that okay, let's have a Sharia law in Sharia court in Mumbai, so that some people will say that okay, we went and we got justice, and whether we liked it or not or whatever, but it was done. So it is like, from the judicial point of view, it is a matter of relief that okay, some sort of system which is not recognized, which is this thing, but they are sorting it out within themselves. So we are fine. No, it is the same rationale that we are not able to provide universal health care and modern medical facility to every individual, that these homeopathy and all these things are being promoted by Ayush. It's basically because they are inferior substitutes of what should ideally be there. Everybody should have universal health care and access
Okay,
to that.
great.
Now, when you are not able to provide that facility and extent, that is where you say that let these alternative systems coexist until we reach there. No, this is a remark and a indictment of our lack of interest in reaching out to the last mile, and to break this stronghold and cloistered of this domestic sphere and all. No, that bubble has to be burst. It has to go to the last mile. But I agree with you that we don't need to have a separate uniform civil code. It will be through succession laws, through this thing, which will be generic and will be applicable for all, and they will be recognized irrespective of what your community and other religion says. Okay.
Thank you, Sualeh. I understand what Sualeh means is that two consenting people, no matter women, no matter two men, no matter even a dog or a man, can be married under a UCC without adhering to religious laws as long as they are consensual relationship. And the problem I have here is that we are not discussing the most important part of UCC, which is the monogamy versus the polygamy. Now, in that,
So yeah,
while you were
yeah,
saying this,
yeah,
no, wait a second. Now, while you were saying this, in my mind, I was calculating. Okay, so if I can go to get my marriage registered 4 times, should that be okay? I mean, because you are not looking at things from practical, whether they are possible or whether they should be done or not, whether they can be done or not. You are looking at things from objective morality purpose or universal rights purpose. That they should be applied to everyone. I understand that perspective, but then there is an inherent schism here between monogamy and polygamy. Why? Because historically speaking, in India, even before Muslims, even before Hindu law or Anglo-Indian Hindu law, there has been a tradition of polygamy even in Hindus. But now,
polyandry as well,
poly-
polyandry as well.
Yes,
and
Ram versus Draupadi.
now all
Ram
this,
versus Draupadi.
but now all this has reformed and has Hindus have come to terms with monogamy. There have been a lot of objections, a lot of fights, a lot of everything without even having Muslims in between. Now, so all those things aside, Jayant, I want to ask you, what is your view on monogamy versus polygamy? And if, let's say, what do you think? Monogamy is a universal principle that should be applied on Muslims as well, or everybody as well, even the societies which might be polygamous or polyandrous. How do you see this problem, and how do you think the solution to this problem, or whether it is imposed or whether it is through the law as Sualeh believes, or whether it is through the talk with the stakeholders as they believe.
So
Irrespective,
see, any any liberal would always say that let the parties decide. So if Homer is going to marry a lady, and they decide that they will keep the marriage open in such a way that any person can marry the other party, some other Homer can marry again, or her his wife can marry again. So
Homer
there should be it should be it should be mutual by mutual consent. That is how it should be, so long as that was decided in advance. So, the problem here is that under existing thing, polygamy by definition means the male can marry 3 times, 4 times, 2 times, and all that. The female cannot. The other thing is, the problem is that when we talk of equality here, so, the liberal would say that let them both decide if they want to, one of them, let's say the guy says that let the female marry more times, I have no problem, but I am agreeing that I will not marry again. Suppose, Homer is going to marry a very rich billionaire, and she said that I will get married as many times as I want, but you will not marry again. So these two parties are progressive, mature, and they are entered into agreement. Sound really, that is not how it is. First of all, the law itself says that only the male can marry more than one. Second is, the woman is at a subordinate state. She's, let's accept it as of the the guy marries. It is a very rare woman who is able to do anything. At what will happen? See, like, at what will happen, she'll be thrown out, she'll be divorced, and, so that reality, so equality is one thing, equity is another. If
so
you don't, you have to give a leg up to the woman. So that is why I said that as on today, you have to ban polygamy. I would say even keep it an offense. It is an offense for Hindus. One chartered accountant, person of my profession, he is now in 2 years jail because he married twice and his wife complained. Now he is in 2 years jail. His chartered accountancy degree has been taken away because what he has done is something which is beyond moral turpitude. So today I am agreeable that polygamy should be banned. It should be an offense. Maybe someday, some section may be mature enough. And to others I would say don't fall into the have a living relationship, have a contractual relationship. Today, if you want to make everybody equal, it is not practical.
what you're saying. Yes,
Can I say something?
yeah, Sualeh, after me, I say 1 minute thing that Jayant, I found a contradiction in your thing. In the initial part of this discussion, you said you don't agree with Sualeh in imposing one law over everybody, but rather let all the communities decide for themselves. But here, in case of polygamy, you are saying that it should be imposed on everybody. Monogamy should be imposed on everybody, and polygamy should be banned, and the communities should have no say in it. I don't understand.
Yeah,
I'll reply here. See, in India, what I'm saying is that don't have a uniform civil code of, in all respects, make it uniform. Pick and choose. Even in the Hindu law, that's why I gave the example of Nehru and, what the Hindu law and it was originally introduced, many things are still misogynistic. But the top four or five things like monogamy, divorce, divorce rights, and things like that, they were taken and reformed. Rest everything, even today, if you see, as I said, today in a marriage, a Hindu male is the guardian of his wife. So
Yeah,
that is how that is recognized in law. So my point is that you need to impose important things. There
Jen,
is
my question is
certain
different.
important. Sorry?
Jen, my question is different. My question is for UCC, we all agree for UCC, there has to be an objective standard, right? Now, between polygamy and or monogamy, how do you decide which one is the objective standard? If you are not talking to the stakeholders, in view, then or you are making a law, how do you decide whether monogamy is objective or polygamy is objective?
So that's why I'm saying that there are certain very important things. See, it's like Pareto's principle that you take the top 20 things, top 20 number, they will cover 80% of your objective. Don't try to do everything 100 at a time. Take top 20, it will cover 80% of your things. Take these few things. Give women equality in divorce. Give women equality in polygamy. Give them maintenance. Give them custody. Just three, four, five things. Do ensure that everybody marries only after the age of 18. These four or five things you don't you
All my,
don't do.
if all my wives
These
give,
are arbitrary.
but no, I'm asking if my all my wives
Actually,
if all my wives give a consent, then why can't I marry many times?
Absolutely, but that's what I'm saying that today it is very easy for you, me, and all that. We are so-called educated and elite. You have to look at the people. 97% of the people who have not even adopted the SMA. You have to look at the 50% of Indians who have married before, who have been married off. They are not married. They've been married off before the age of 18. If you say that they and you are equal, that is not a fair statement. They are not equal. They are, they are ruled by the community. They are ruled by their families. You need to give them a leg up. You cannot just say that okay, you are equal. You do what you want. They won't be able to do it.
Jayant, why are you forcing people
yeah, and I
to
think
marry, after age of 18? Their religion allows them, so why at that time you don't have a problem? You are forcing them to delay, defer the marriage of their
I say
child.
that there are four or
So,
five
so
things.
that
Four or five
the,
things
con-
need to put.
the question that Rajesh asked is that there is a contradiction, and you have not addressed that contradiction.
No, no. I
You
know.
are also saying that equality and this thing. If my religion says not equal, then you are forcing me. So
What
let
I'm
us
saying.
accept that it is acceptable to force.
I mean, when it comes to UCC,
It's like it's like
on his own. But when it
let
comes to
me complete.
no, don't
Uh,
finish.
yeah,
Point is,
Rajesh,
in uniform civil code, you are forcing them on every small thing. You want them to marry also in a particular way. What I'm saying is there are certain things where fundamental rights should rule. See,
what
I'll
particular
tell
way?
you,
Monogamy is not a fundamental right.
the fundamental right says make them equal, make man and woman equal. See, what is the problem today? What are the hot topics today? Why does instant triple talaq come? Why does maintenance come? Why does these three, four, five issues come? Rest of the things don't come. People don't see. But I'll tell you an example.
You wait for me; those things will come also in this program itself.
and I
Don't
also want to
worry.
add. I also want to add that Jayant made a very good point that what if Umar marries a billionaire, and I like that. But now you are taking away my right of marrying 4 billionaires. What if I want to marry 4 billionaires?
So you don't agree to marry the first billionaire. That's what I'm saying. If you agree, then don't go back on your word.
Yeah,
It's a complex. See, you as an educated elite person, you are aware. You will make a conscious decision that okay, sharing that billion with four other persons, still you get 250 million each. So that is
Jen,
your
Uh,
decision. You may
Jen,
not agree.
I
uh,
find your
uh,
comment very offensive.
I
Sorry.
want to I want to address Rajesh's question
No,
because
no,
I
so
don't think.
let me answer to Jayant in 1 second, please. 1 second.
Okay.
I find what he said very offensive because one, he, as Omar said, he's taking away my right. Number two, he's saying that if I practice polygamy, I'm an uncivilized person. He's saying monogamy is superior and polygamy is not superior. Basically, he's saying Muslim communities are inferior. And I take that as very big offense.
it hurts my religious sentiment.
Yes,
And
I
then,
don't.
It hurts my religious sentiment also.
So please continue what you were saying.
yeah, Rajesh, I got
Okay,
the
I'm just
drift of your question regarding polygamy. From my perspective, polygamy should be allowed if only if polyandry is also allowed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in the absence
exactly
of
my
polyandry, polygamy is not equality. Otherwise, I don't have any problem if 10 adults, consenting adults, decide to have some community or family or whatever with multiple partnerships. That's up to them. In fact, in future, I envisage that there are going to be different levels of contracts. There is the like there are live-in relationships, and now they also have certain rights. Now it's being increasingly recognized that they should also, like if you are in a living
I want to say
relationship for
something about
four
living
five
marriage later.
years, they also have certain, but maybe not the same level as marriage. So what I envisage in future is that there are going to be different levels of contracts. Say for example, if you want to go out with a girlfriend, so tomorrow she doesn't accuse you of molestation or whatever, you can have a consent form which will establish that our relationship will have, and this is the amount of the rights that are associated with that. So there will be levels: live in, fling, one night stand, this thing. So all of them can be rationalized, and that is not a this thing. It will in fact protect people's rights and not be accused and this thing. Another thing I want the constitution to do is that I am a house husband and I have a wife who is working and all. So, in case of a divorce, who pays alimony to whom? These are the things that need to be rationalized, because finally, equality also means that man is not neither the master nor he is the guardian necessarily. It can be the woman is the guardian in terms of that. So, all these things need to be clarified and in a very simple and straight form and universal form, not specific to gender, not specific to this thing. So it will be according to maybe the earning capacity. Now everybody will have their income tax returns, and also based on that, the quantum and who pays to whom, or is it going to be the other way around? Those things can be sorted out. And what I feel is that in future, is that like I said, that slavery is gone. Huh? So that equality concept is not there. Now we are stuck in the gender, this binary equality equation. But I think that in future it's going to be about children. Is a child born in a certain this thing? They don't have any consent. Can you do female genital mutilation to somebody under 18, even though they are your family, and this thing doesn't mean that your family tells you that you chop them off, you do this, and it is protected by your religion. No. Tomorrow it's going to be about children's. Right now we are at the gender stage, we are talking about marriage and all, but it's all about children. Tomorrow, for example, somebody is born in a Christian family, and they are Christian scientists who believe that prayer is important, and medicine and all these, vaccination doesn't work, this doesn't work and all that. I think that in future, if you are going to have a child, the child has certain rights and you have certain duties, and failure to perform these duties can provide means for the government to separate your children from you. Because if
Mhm.
your child is suffering from some disease and you don't take him to a free healthcare center which the government has established near your place, this is gross negligence. If anything happens to the child, you should be prosecuted just like this. What I am saying is that this binary between what is public law and what is civil law, it has to go. It's an artificial this thing. If somebody rapes somebody, it doesn't make it civil if that person is your relative, and if it's a stranger, it is public. No, it is criminal in both cases. Same rule, same. It is about how interaction of individuals, rather than okay, this is a different
Yeah.
zone, this is a
What
different
do you
zone.
think? I understand it from him is that law has to be applied equally to everybody without consideration of Hindu, Muslim, or anything else. Jayant, what do you think?
And about children is that basically the consent. You were talking so much about under marriage, under age marriage and all that kind of a thing. Huh? What about underage kind of a things that are done to you when you are not technically recognized as having a consent, from this thing? So, for example, circumcision. For
And doesn't
example,
matter whether someone is Hindu or Muslim.
indoctrination, telling you that those things are bad, those things. So tomorrow, what is going to happen is that children If they make a complaint that somebody is beating me, it will not be something that will be taken as a civic case कि सुलझा लो आप community में या पंचायत बिठा दो या whatever. No, it has to go through the same process, and it is happening. We see it happening. We are a little behind the curve. It is happening. The strengthening of child's. In fact, to give you an anecdote, since Jayant started the tradition of anecdotes, you know what is the biggest scare of 1984 kind of a scenario where the government is breathing over people? It is not that emotions are banned. That will never happen. You know, that is not possible. The most creepy thing in 1984, the story is that the child of the protagonist is the one who reports to the authorities and reports against the parent and gets him in trouble. I think that is what people are scared of. That it is that now our new generation they are going to judge us, and so they want to sort of say our traditions are better and this thing and force it on the next generation. No, next generation might have a totally different
Yeah.
view on it, and that is what is the why people are holding on to these traditions, because they know that tomorrow's generation they are not going to be lenient in judging them how they were treated, how even threatening a child that if you don't do this we will send you off to a boarding school or something. It is a child abuse or something. So in future it's more going to be about child abuse and how families function. Now there is this kind of a fear, that is this thing that intruding in this will maybe break the family system. No, if you give equal, if your children equal inherit equally, what part of your culture is destroyed? What part of the family is? If your law demands that you treat your children humanely and don't do unto them certain things for which they have to wait until 18 years to say that we belong to this religion and let me get circumcised or whatever, so sooner or later it is going to happen that way. So there is, it doesn't mean a breakdown of family system where some allowance would mean, because then why is, why, how is equality going to change any tradition? Your
Okay.
tradition said that they are not equal, but if you give equality, it just changes the value system a little bit towards equality. But you follow the same this thing. You can dress the way you want. You can perform your rituals the way you want, marriage ceremonies or whatever. It is basically that. So it's basically constitutional guarantees should go to the last mile. And right now, I feel that children are the ones who are outcast, who don't have any
Okay.
rights.
I get
So
your
that is the
point.
future.
Okay, we get your point, Sualeh. But I think we are still going in circles. We have discussed from the beginning till now. It's been like
Hmm.
1 hour almost, and we have only stuck to one point, whether it is desirable or not. Number one thing, and number two is that whether we can achieve it or not. I am still more stuck on, and I want to focus. I want everybody to focus on this. Even if it is desirable, let's say it is desirable. Let's say, as Jayant also said, that okay, certain things we can pick up which can be applied on everybody else. For example, monogamy. I might agree, disagree with him on this, but that's a different thing. But still, we are still talking about the desirability of UCC. We are still talking about, but we are not discussing whether it is practically possible constitutionally or not. Like, for example, I remember when after the Constituent Assembly, as Jayant also pointed out, Nehru and everybody, they had to, in the Hindu code bill, they had to act and everything. So there was a lot of discourse on this also. Other than the fights and all, there was a lot of discourse also on this. And there was a case, I don't remember the name of the case, but that case recognized that the Article 13.1 makes it impossible for personal laws to be under judicial review at all. It's impossible. It's like it's a statutory law. It's not a, I mean, it's a personal law. It's not a statutory law. It can be put under judicial review. What the conclusion of the case was that yes, UCC is a desirable, but only once we have reached a position where Hindus and Muslim customs are so intermingled by virtue of whether imposition or whether by
I think they said differently. Yeah.
intermingling, that nobody minds the UCC. That is the constitutional application of desirability of UCC. But till the time being, it makes it impossible to make personal laws for a judicial review. So my question to Jayant, you is, even if you were to choose between monogamy and polygamy and remove some parts of personal law, how can anybody do it if it is not under a judicial review? Because see, there are two things.
Okay, good question.
Okay, there are two things here. There's also one more distinction that court case made, that judiciary can, being a secular judiciary, it cannot interfere in the practices. So it can interfere in the social practices of a religion, which means that social reform, it can bring social reform by meaning to address the social practices. What it cannot do is address the religion. So it is two things in one thing, where it cannot interfere with the religion, it can interfere with the social practices to bring about the social reform. Problem here comes between Hindu law and Muslim law is because all of Muslim law is defined by the religious law, whereas Hindu code bill or Hindu law is a what you can say is it's an oxymoron. There is no Hindu law that exists actually speaking. Historically, from 3,000 years, there is nothing to Hindu law. It has been derived from Vedas, then Upanishads, then Purans, then after that there have been Dharam Shastras, there have been Narad Smritis, there have been Vrita Kashras. So there has been so much that has happened. There is nothing called Hindu law. It was only a Britishers who wanted Hindu law because there was a Muslim law and there was a Christian law as well. So they wanted, in their own image, they wanted to claim a Hindu law for Indians who are not Muslims and who are not Christians. So that's how Hindu law came about. So it was bound that there will be a lot of opposition. There was. But again, the problem, how they solved the problem was, they could do better reforming Hindu laws, not Hindu laws, but Hindu practices, because they could interfere with the practices of reform. They could not interfere with the religious part of it, which means the scriptural part.
I'll tell you something about this. So, Rajesh, what you are saying is, I would say partly right, because the Supreme Court decisions have evolved over the years, and your earlier question whether it is practicable because apparently as per you the judiciary view is that we should not touch religious practices. Actually, it is not. So there are two parts to this. If you see last at least 7, 8 decisions right from Shah Bano, what Supreme Court keeps on telling us, them, including right up to 2016, which made the government set up this ministry and give this report on personal laws. What they've always been saying that Article 44 is there in the Constitution. It is a directive principle, make a UCC, make a UCC. So they say that why these problems are coming to us, why don't you as a parliament, because see, you are the people, finally the lawmaking body, why don't you make it? But Supreme Court themselves, they have been very diffident. What they have done is, that makes me very sometimes infuriated that when a question comes to you, that fundamental rights is there of equality, there is Article 25 right to religion. Why don't you say that in important matters, Article 14, Article 13 will override Article 25? What they do is almost it's like a trickery. What they do is they always say that scriptures are always good. There is nothing bad in scriptures. Only the interpretation, only these priests, only these leaders, they are evil. So what they did, the instant triple talaq case, why was All India Muslim Personal Law Board, actually sharing tweets, although it was against that? Because the Supreme Court said that instant triple talaq is banned not because it is for equality of women, because it is un-Islamic. Look at the Sabrimala case. Why was admission given? Because they didn't say because even Hinduism says women cannot come. They say Sabrimala, it is not in Hinduism that women cannot come into temple. You say this Dargah, Dargah. Also they said that Islam does not say don't come into mosque. These idiot priests and leaders they are saying, and they immediately did too. You go back even to Shah Bano. Shah Bano is supposed to be the leading case about UCC and progressiveness and all that. If you read the decision, what did the court say? They said that giving maintenance to a divorced, destitute woman is not against Islamic practice. It is not contradictory to that. So what they have done is they have always upheld the scripture. They have not said that even if the scripture says, I will give you.
That is exactly the point I made, that they are not allowed to interfere with the religious scripture. They can only
one area one area it is allowed. What they have done is they have developed this concept of essential religious practice versus non-essential. See, I'll give you an example. Muslims and Sikhs both have this tradition of having beard. In the army, there is a rule that your soldiers, officers should not have beard. So one Muslim went and said that this Sikh guy is having a beard. Why I can't have, or not have a beard? It is also mine and my religion. So what the ruling came is that, see, for Sikh, there are five essential tenets of the religion. One of them is hair, kesh. So for them, this is an essential practice. For you, it is not an essential practice. Nasiruddin Shah, what did he say in Khuda ke liye movie? साड़ी है, साड़ी में दीन नहीं है. It means your beard is not part of essential practice of the religion just because maybe Prophet Muhammad had a beard. That is why there is a tradition that is not part of. So what Supreme Court has done is that it has not totally ruled out. They said that if it is an essential religious practice, they will not touch it.
No, no,
In that case, let the parliament.
James, you're not getting a point.
Okay, I have.
They did not do it because it was not written in the Quranic or religious scripture. That's why they did not touch it. But they agreed with the Sikh because it was written in the religious scripture. That's exactly the point. If it was a social practice, they could change it, they could alter it, they could reform it. But if it was written in the religious scripture, they cannot touch it.
So that's why I'm saying.
Okay, I have a question. I have a question. Jayant brought up Sabrimala, for example. So the question is that, like he said that the court ruled that it is not mentioned in the scripture, so we can't interfere in it. But when we come to Sabrimala, and so there is a particular deity who is supposedly a brahmachari, right? And so up to age of 14 or whatever, menstruating women cannot enter, right? So now we would not want religious uh, laws to be interfering into secular institutions, right? So should there secular laws be interfering into religious institutions? Because a temple is not a secular place by definition. That is my understanding, right? Whatever laws are in the country, a temple or this say is a religious place by definition. So, do you think that should the secularism or the UCC should be dictating those institutions also, religious institutions
Why
also?
are you asking this question?
Again, what I'm saying is,
Who can answer? Yeah,
Sorry?
uh,
whoever can answer, Sualeh or Jayant.
okay, let's both answer. See, according to me, Sabrimala, see, it is, as you rightly said, it's a deity. See, now we do not know. Before the Supreme Court, the temple authorities could not prove with evidence that the Sabrimala deity did not want women. Apparently, I am feeling that they just couldn't gather evidence. But before the Supreme Court could not give, so they said that it is your arbitrary rule that these women should not come. That is why. But now the matter has got to a nine-judge bench. Nine-judge bench, and they are reviewing it. So, but in principle, I am sure that if it comes, if they are able to prove that the deity cannot accept the so-called purity and sanctity and all that will get lost because other worshippers then will not feel that there is any sanctity to the deity. So, according to me, it is a private religious entity. As you rightly said, it is not a secular place. Therefore, in that particular place, it's like Rajesh used to write earlier that my home is my castle. I will allow bearded guy not to come, or I will not allow a less than 6 feet guy to come into my house.
I would like to
So, Jayant,
Sualeh to comment on it.
So wait, I want to confirm one thing with Jayant before Sualeh and Omar can take over. Jayant, are you agreeing with what I said in the beginning that bringing UCC will not only kill the diversity between Hindu and Muslims, which is a desirable thing, but it will also kill the desirability between Hindus and Hindus, different sections of Hindus, which is not a desirable thing. Do you agree with me, Jayant?
No. See, again, that's why I differentiated between family laws and individual rights. See, as an individual, if I make a temple and if I say I don't want menstruating,
And we are talking in context of Sabrimala.
correct. So in Sabrimala, the deity, we don't know what really the deity said because even the temple authorities could not say. But if the deity did say that I don't want women, then if I am setting a temple of Sabrimala, I should have the right of not admitting women of that particular age. And that women can protest outside or they can bypass and they call me misogynist, the deity misogynist and everything. But I should have that right to my individual right See, I'm not imposing. If somebody acts for just sets up another Sabrimala temple,
What is the religion of Sabrimala devotees, if I may ask?
it's a part of Hinduism.
Now, what do you mean a part of Hinduism? Either it is Hinduism or it is not.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's Hinduism. Yeah,
It is not
correct.
Hinduism. I'm sorry to say that it is not Hinduism. Because Hinduism is not one ism. That's the problem we make always comparing it with Islam, because Islam is a ism. Hinduism is not an ism. Because
Correct.
ism means common law, ism means a common practices, ism means a common set of doctrines. Hinduism does not have that. That's why it's all a
Yeah,
farce.
yeah,
The
yeah. Correct, correct,
whole thing
correct.
of
Yeah,
Hindu law is also a farce.
correct, correct,
Okay, I think
correct.
now I should now
Yeah,
Sorry, Sualeh
my
Omer,
turn.
please
Yeah,
take over.
yeah. So
Yeah.
first of all, the state or the judiciary has no business interfering in Sabrimala. It is their trust, their rules. They decide, and it is not a denial of these darshan or something. It's not a violation of anybody's fundamental rights. We might say that okay, they are
Mm.
male only clubs and there are female only clubs. Fine. I think that that is what adds to the diversity of this country, and I don't think that UCC will anyway affect diversity because it's only about equality of children, of spouses, of these things. That in no way uh, treads on the toes of any ethnic or culture or ritual or शादी कैसे मनानी है गोड़ी चढ़ के मनानी है कैसे मनानी है government is not bothered about those kind of a thing. So I think that that is this thing. And regarding what Rajesh was saying, that's very important, that there is no single what these British people try to do by creating these two parallel Hindu Muslim personal law and yeah, Muslim personal law and Hindu. So what they try to do is that from their point of view, because their worldview was used to a certain guidebooks, certain things that are essential for their some 10 commandments kind of a thing. It was because of the failure to find such a thing in India that they said that this is going to get complicated for us. So let us just get some
No,
from from some
Sualeh,
important people.
ऐसे
तो
because
तो
only
मनुस्मृति पे
only
बनाते
came into
हैं,
the picture.
या मनुस्मृति पे
It
बनाते
came in the
हैं.
picture only because of the
So yeah,
diversity was a
so
problem for them to handle.
so because of that they created this bipolar, a two pole, Hindu and Muslim. And in this Hindu thing, forget about the intra Hindu diversity, they even added other religions to the same
Okay,
grouping.
Buddhism, etc. Yeah.
So this was basically simple ease of implementation. There was no rationale and nor it is true to this thing. So it is, I think that we have to sort of dehyphenate this Hindu Muslim thing, dichotomy and this thing, it has to go. We have to recognize that India is multipolar. When you talk about Northeast, you're not talking about a religion per se. We're talking about a region. So similarly, but in the larger Hindu family, they also are included. So you have to understand that India is a multipolar thing, and to make it about Muslim and this thing, that is the thing. I think regarding the implementation of UCC, I say that you have UCC principle in Inheritance Act, in Adoption Act, in Divorce Act, in Marriage Act, and you just discard these personal boards and other things for Hindus and Muslims. It is when you derecognize them, we have enough laws to deal with these things as per law, based on principles of equality, equity, or whatever you want. So that is not going to interfere with anything. I don't think there is any issue in this thing. Now the thing is that how is there going to be a new law that will come say that I am the code? No. The thing is that that there is no code. There is a principle, and it has to be in every aspect of every law of the constitution, and not just marriage, but also say like you are an employee somewhere, huh? You have this thing, so everything, every sphere, you can't say that this is public, this is private, everything is personal. For in front of the law, all the civilians, they are public. They are not, but it is because of the inconvenience that it created the Britishers who did not understand the complexity or nuances in society that they created this kind of a hodgepodge system.
You
Even
know,
though they themselves say that no, eventually UCC is going to be right at every
you know,
stage.
Sualeh, I will give one more example. One more example where I find a very big contradiction in India and nobody talks about that. Right now, people who talk in favor of UCC, for example, they talk about pluralism of India and they talk about how everybody should be able to maintain their own laws or personal laws, right? That's their only argument. But when you take it pre-Muslim era, and exactly this is what was there in the Manusmriti. They were different societies based on caste, everyone having their own laws, legal. So basically, it was a legal pluralism at that time, right? As per them, but they don't accept the caste, but they accept the legal pluralism of today. This is a completely contradictory thing, and that's why if you have to be against that legal pluralism of caste and at that point of time, the separate doctrines for separate caste and separate rules and everything, rituals. How can you agree to not having a UCC now? I mean, if caste is bad, differences in the caste are bad, then differences in the religion are also bad and completely should be abolished.
So So you are saying that there is a contradiction that casteism is bad, so we have to sort of bring them in a single fold. While at the same time, when it comes to religions, we say that let them be divided.
Yeah.
So I understand what I don't think that actually there is caste can be actually erased because
Yeah.
it is related to your vocation, your profession, and all, and that will always you will be always be judged by sabzi wale ka beta or doodh wale ka beta or
Casteism is a different thing.
yeah, casteism is a different thing.
Looking at
So
it in an inferior way is a different thing.
Yeah.
I would say that UCC to begin with does not actually erase anything. That's what I am saying, that there is no impact on culture except for certain regressive things that your culture permitted you to do, sanctioned you to do, like atrocities on children or women. You will be those things are criminalized, so you can't do. They can. They are people are free to do that. It does not impinge on freedom of anybody except for your freedom to deny somebody's equality.
I'll go back to what Sualeh said about living, because I just, was looking up some matters relating to that. See, today what is happening is that obviously not a very large chunk, but many people, many, recent youngsters, they prefer to have a living relationship. So what happens is now, this has happened for enough years that the matter has gone to court. And what courts have been saying is that, as Sualeh put it in a positive way, that they are recognizing them as marriage and then giving them rights. Now, if you see from the other point of view, one view it is good. Suppose that two people have been staying for 10 years, 12 years, as living now, they already have children and they have a lot of community of property, and one fine day they break up. What happens to their assets? What happens to their children? So courts in a positive way has rightly recognized. See, today there is no law recognizing living relationship. Courts have recognized them and they said they are as good as marriage. Actually, what court was doing was applying earlier traditions where some man and woman may be staying together, sometimes even as man and mistress, and sometimes they are they could not prove their marriage. So what they said is that if you have been living together for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, then we recognize their marriage. But see, if you go to see,
Recognize because they have to recognize because they have no option. Because
no,
the
no, no,
problem comes,
Rajesh,
the problem comes if they have a child, and then the problem comes of inheritance, and then those kind of problems come.
Rajesh, but by doing that, what you are doing is what we are doing really is that in today's times they don't want them to. Why they are having a living relationship? They don't want this traditional burden of marriage and divorce and all those things. They want to be independent. Those two people, they will have their bank account separate. Sorry.
How can they have a child then together? If they
Yeah,
have,
but even no. If they have a child, but otherwise they are staying for 15 years together. What we are doing is we are forcing them the traditional institution of marriage, traditional institution of divorce, traditional institution of alimony. They wanted to have a modern concept, but now we are forcing them. Same way you see same-sex marriage. This same-sex marriage, it is not yet recognized as a tradition in the Kerala either.
Levin was basically an escape from all these laws.
Sorry?
Levin was basically an escape from all these laws.
Absolutely. So what you're doing is you're enforcing the tradition. So if UCG comes and makes them also a part of the marriage and tradition, you're forcing them, into doing something. See, same
No,
thing in marriage.
I said that there are going to be different levels of contracts. So marriage is going to be more solidified, and the living is going to be loose, and the one night stand is going to be even less rights associated with it.
So, to extend it to same-sex marriage, today it is not allowed. Only homosexuality has been decriminalized. But there is a petition in the Kerala High Court that in USA they already recognized
Omar
High
has,
Court.
Omar has left. He had to. I mean, I don't know. Is he internet some problem? Okay, he's come
He
back.
joined.
Yeah. So I think we should find a way to conclude it now. And so, what are the agreements and what are the complete disagreements do we have? Jayant, you go ahead first. What do you agree
What,
upon?
what, I,
Whatever rest of us have
what
said.
I am saying is that I am on the same page that UCC is an ideal, but today you have everybody against you. You have a BJP in power who is perceived to be anti-Muslim, and it is perceived that UCC is being used to just beat up the Muslim as a stick and demonize them. That is the perception. In the opposition, we don't have people like the Congress. We have Congress, but it is not a Nehru of Congress. We have current people who are opportunistic. They will sabotage even a positive, if at all a positive thing comes. So first is you have political parties which are in the mess. You have judiciary which is dissident. They have put so many recognition of. They never said that they will uphold fundamental rights over religion. So you have against them. You have northeastern states. You have Muslims. You have Parsis who all are against you. We have not even consulted them. Your own law ministry says no, we should not have judiciary, UCC as recently as 2018. So all the cards are against you. So as of today, and as I said, even on the ground level, laws have not worked. For 50% of almost 50% of what I'm trying to say.
And my question was: is there something what you agree with this Sualeh on something? From whatever you have heard till now, what are the points that you agree on with it? And what are the points that you completely
As an ideal UCC at some point of time, definitely you can debate. I wouldn't.
Sualeh, what about you? What do you agree with?
I agree with Jayant where he says that we just need to tweak each act, whether it is a adoption act, a divorce act, or this thing, and make it universal. While at the same time, if we recognize the personal laws, then it is already UCC. The whole constitution is UCC. Without introducing anything new, we are only going to tweak the individual areas where some relationship or something in the domestic affair, sphere is this thing, and we just de-recognize any this thing that you have to. So that way, I would say that this alarmist or slippery slope kind of this thing that there is going to be a lot of opposition or something. I think this is nonsense. I have no hesitation in saying that this alarm is a false alarm. There is going to be no opposition to it. Who is going to oppose? Why is a Parsi going to oppose equality? Why is a Muslim going to? Nobody is going to. This is like a Y2K scare. And it is like that 370 nahi impossible hai. But when it happens like chutki mein. And what happens after
So
that?
I would just add as a concluding remark from my side that even if UCC does not come as a separate law, like Jayant said that it might be impractical sort of. Though I agree with Swale that one day it has to come and it should come. Personally, I think that. But if even if it is impractical or if it is far-fetched, so I think UCC is a spirit, it's a principle. So if the constitution in its current form just recognizes every individual, irrespective of their religion, so I think that would be enough. Even if UCC does not come as a separate benchmark or separate bulldozer, it can just come into principle. So I think that the constitution in itself is very good
De-recognition
and it is complete and it is enough.
Okay. So
de-recognition
from
of
my side,
personal laws is very important. Because
Okay.
as
So
long as
from
you
my
are
side, Sualeh,
cognizing
I
that,
would like to
that
conclude
you are
now.
allowing an alternative system to function with the constitution, a parasite which is not allowing it to be universally fair, and it is leaving and outsourcing certain things to the Kap panchayats and the Muslim personal boards and other these things. Yeah.
Okay. From my side, what I
Right.
would like to conclude is understood and what I understand and conclude is that UCC is a desirable thing, no doubt, but UCC might not have to come as a separate law to personal votes. It is a principle, as Sualeh said, and that principle, what is the common goal? What is the goal of that principle is to reduce the friction between different personal law votes or different views of the society and bring the equality path of equality toward both to all the societies. Now, and that's a principle that doesn't have, that principle doesn't have to have a force of law with it. What we can do also, if we cannot bring UCC in one go altogether, what we can also again do is chipping away in incremental way all the privileges that these personal law boards enjoy in different sections like marriage, succession, alimony, etc., etc. And we can, with the force of social reform, we can bring all these laws together. If there is some, just like we have done reforms in Hindu society, whatever was the bad practice, we kept on removing one by one by one. It has taken about 200 years. In 1770 was the first time when Britishers tried to understand that whether there is something called Hindu law or not. But there was nothing. They could not find nothing because it was based on not one scripture called Manusmriti. It was based on thousands of scriptures. And those thousands of scriptures. So what Britishers did was they picked up whatever suited their narrative. They picked one thing from one scripture, one thing from one scripture, and one thing, and on the basis of that, they formed a common homogeneous idea of Hindu law. Now, and I agree that that has helped because slowly it has chipped away all the bad things, sati, etc., etc. Even in the Adoption Act, in the Succession Act, widow marriage and all that. So it has chipped away all those bad practices and brought in a more universal Hinduism now, which has less differences than before within the Hindu society. So similar thing can be done with the Muslim law separately as well. I'm saying before bringing the Hindu and Muslim law closer, first reform the Muslim laws, kept them, like for example, we have done triple talaq, for example, things like that. So we have to keep chipping on the bad parts of Muslim personal law boards so that they become so dilute, then ultimately, in the end, making the Hindu and Muslim personal laws come together becomes an easier task.
I disagree with this approach because I don't think it is an objective at all, or an objective one should have, or the constitution or the state should have to social engineer, bring them together, improve the personal boards. No, I am saying derecognize them and have a civil code which is applying to citizens, irrespective. You are not
Yeah, but
mentioning any religion at all,
no, I
and
agree.
let them continue in their own
As a,
trajectory. The
as
thing
a,
is that we have inserted these two things, and it is now we are trying to bring them at par until they will just be on in name personal religious, but they will be at par as
I don't
what
disagree with
envisaged
you.
by constitution.
So
I am saying that discard
What
them
what Sualeh was
completely.
saying is that
I don't
it is
disagree with
not
you at all.
it is not state prerogative to impose a constitutional morality or impose a morality on the people.
No, I don't disagree
So
with
that is
either.
what Sualeh is saying.
Yeah, I am saying don't hesitate to
Sualeh,
impose. We
Sualeh,
should
can
not
I answer?
ask anybody's or take cognizance of anybody who says that I am opposed to abolition of slavery.
Sualeh, can I answer to your point?
Yeah.
Okay. I am saying that I do not disagree with what you are saying at all. Absolutely, I am in complete disagreement. The only bone of contention here is whether it is desirable, yes, but should it be applicable now when there are differences, when there is huge difference between Hindu law and the personal law? Or should it be after some time once we have achieved more commonality?
I think
Mm-hmm.
70 years,
Oh,
or if we say UCC,
I was just giving you an example of reformation of Hindu system,
Yeah.
Hindu society. It took about 200 years. 200 years.
I think we can
Sualeh is
fast track.
talking about
I
the
think we
theory,
can fast
and
track,
Rajesh is
and
talking about the practice.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can fast track. The thing is that we can't wait for the enlightenment of an evolution of people. For the
It has
progressive laws can't hold for that. It can be in a top-down manner. And I am saying that this is being exaggerated, that there is going to be this thing, because it is not, UCC is not touching individual religion. It is just saying that this is a principle we are following. You do it in your way, you do it in your way, but the principle of equality will be universal. So I don't see that
I
there is any issue at all.
yeah, I Sualeh, because if we wait for the evolution of a particular community or society, every society individually, it might take centuries more, as we have seen. So yeah, I will just conclude, and I would let Rajesh conclude the debate also.
I'm sorry.
I'll just pass my vote. I'm with Rajesh on piecemeal thing. Anyway, so we are like we are just anyway, but anyway, conclude.
Well,
Can
I'm
you
not
conclude,
in
Rajesh?
I'm
Conclude.
not
I
in
think it has to
piecemeal.
be known here as well in debate what is true of India as a whole as well, that Hindus or ex-Hindus are more patient than the ex-Muslims or Muslims. So we have more patience to wait for things.
Anyway, let's conclude. Yeah,
We
let's
have
conclude.
waited long enough. Yeah, we have waited a lot.
Patient or complacent or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, fine. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks
It
a
was a
lot. It
pleasure.
was
Thank you.
really
Sualeh,
fun.
joining.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, okay. So we'll thank you, watchers. Thank you, viewers, for watching Choosing the Red Pill, episode 5. We discussed UCC in a very riveting way here today. And
Red pill.
hope you again. No, I'm talking to the viewers and hope to see them again next week with some other topic and some other sensational debate. Thank you very much, guys. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye bye.